We have had bubbles throughout history, and they manifest themselves various ways, from the tulip bulbs to the dot-coms or whatever it may, and we'll have them in the future. Human beings, we get smarter about a lot of things in terms of how to produce things and become more productive. We don't get rid of, unfortunately, of the basic human emotions. And greed and fear will always operate the same way. If you look at 2008 and the institutions that failed or came close to failure, if you take AIG and Citigroup, and you take Wachovia and Washington Mutual, and you take Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, the stockholders of those companies lost hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. Citigroup didn't go under, but when stockholders lose 90% of their value, it really doesn't make much difference if you got $1,000 invested, whether you end up with $100 or nothing. So there is, in my view, has been no moral hazard created for stockholders by the fact that the government came in to rescue those institutions. The moral hazard exists, I think, with the top executives who walked away with hundreds of millions of dollars and really did not pay the price for their failure. We had bigger and bigger financial institutions that had all kinds of activities where their problems became other people's problems. And then we had improper incentives. We had the people running huge institutions whose upside was lots of money and lots of glory, and whose downside was still lots of money but no glory. Trust makes the world function better. I mean, commerce without trust gets very awkward, and we saw that in September 2008. 30 million Americans in a period of a week lost trust in their money market funds. The government had to come in and essentially guarantee those funds. But if you have 30 million Americans that believe something to be the case in August, and in September, where their money was, didn't believe in it anymore, the economic train comes to a halt pretty darn fast. So a functioning, trustworthy economic system worldwide is a huge plus, and it's even more of a plus for many countries that haven't had it. I mean, we're used to it in the United States.
Do you believe that international financial stability is essential to world peace?
Well, we'll never have perfect international financial stability. I mean, people will continue to make the mistakes they've made in the past with small variations. It's, what Mark Twain said about history, that it doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. That's very much the nature of financial history. The people who got those big institutions into huge troubles, which set not just ripples, but tsunamis throughout the world, went away with plenty of money. And that should not happen. You need a greater balance of incentives. You need a person that, if they're running a bank or some other large institution that is so important that the government needs to come in to save it because it needs to save the economy generally, those people should, in my view, should be bankrupted if they screw things up. And that hasn't happened.
Even though we will have bubbles, and we've always had bubbles, do you believe that people have the ability to transform their values?
Well, I'd be fairly pessimistic about people learning to control greed and fear any better in the future than they have in the past. But what really gets them in trouble is the fact that when a fellow goes home at night and his neighbor is making a lot of money very easily, and his wife reminds him that guy is dumber than he is, and yet he's making money on dot-com stocks, or he's making money because he's been financing more of a house than he can handle, but nevertheless he keeps refinancing it. And looking at that guy and thinking, I've got 20 IQ points over him, and he's getting rich and I'm not, that drives people crazy, and it will continue to drive people crazy 100 years from now and 500 years from now. There's always a tension between the market system and unleashing it, while at the same time not causing it to go to excess. We'll learn that certain things do need to be controlled, and we'll learn that other systems do unleash potential of humans, and different societies will come at it somewhat different ways. The Chinese are coming at it somewhat differently than the U.S., and you'll see that around the world. But I think overall, we'll learn more from others' successes and as time goes by, and humanity as a whole will be living better 50 or 100 or 200 years from now. And incidentally, the world is not a zero-sum game at all. I mean, if some guy discovers penicillin in the UK, I mean, it crosses borders. It does me some good. And so we want the rest of the world to prosper. We should want it anyway as human beings. But beyond that, there's a very utilitarian aspect to wishing the world well, because you do not want the United States to be an island of 300 million people doing magnificently while 6 billion people are sitting there envious of us. I send out a letter every 2 years roughly to all the managers at Berkshire. It's only a page and a quarter. It's the only thing I tell them, but I basically say, do what's legal, obviously, but also don't do anything that you wouldn't be happy to have written about on the front page of a newspaper tomorrow morning to be read by your friends and neighbors and family and all of that. And then I tell them one other thing. I tell them, look, if the reason you're doing it is, if the reason you give me why you're doing it is everyone else is doing it, that's not good enough. If that's the best you can come up with, there's something wrong with what you're doing. And so it isn't can we do it, it's should we do it. And it's a very important in all aspects of life. I've heard more dumb things rationalized by the fact that the other guy is doing it. And I tell them if it's close to the line, it's over the line. I mean, nobody can see the line that well. I tell them I'm 80 years old. My eyes have gone bad. So just don't do anything close to the line. It makes me nervous.